This week on Talking Royals, what's behind Harry's split from the charity Sentebale?
The most extraordinary kind of public spat between the co-founders and the chair.
I cannot stress enough how important this charity is.
Chris, Lizzie and I joined the Queen on the set of Trigger Point.
You do actually have to be quiet. This could actually be used in Trigger Point.
You might see me or Lizzie's face like in the corner, like popping up saying, sorry.
Everybody, every Tom, Dick and Harry kept saying, my goodness me, you're on brand. And is there really beef between Meghan and Gwyneth? They're on like a WhatsApp group with the girls.
The Montecito WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the show. Lizzie and I are jumping in ahead of the rest of the episode, a kind of bumper bit of the podcast, because after we recorded everything with Charlene, we got some breaking news about the King's health. So let's quickly update everyone on what we got. Announcement from Buckingham Palace Thursday night. King, hospital, wasn't meant to go to hospital, but now he's out again.
Yeah, the King is still ongoing with his cancer treatment. We knew that yesterday. On Thursday, he experienced some temporary side effects and therefore he was taken to hospital for observation. And so 9 p.m. last night, that news was announced, wasn't it?
Yes, which if you work in broadcasting only gives you an hour to get everything ready for programmes at 10 o'clock. However, more importantly, he didn't get rushed to hospital in an ambulance. It was a car move, wasn't it? And I mean, we should be clear that he has routine treatment all the time. Some of that treatment does involve going to hospital, but this, I think the significant part of this is that it was unplanned.
It was unplanned, and also it has impacted his programme. So on Thursday, he was due to have some credentials with ambassadors.
So these are incoming ambassadors from other countries who get to see the King before they start their job.
Yeah, those were due to happen on Thursday afternoon and had to be postponed, and then he was due to go to Birmingham on Friday for a handful of engagements, and those were also postponed on the advice of his doctors, and therefore they decided to make this public.
I wonder whether, had he not had a series of engagements in Birmingham at the end of the week that they had then therefore had to cancel on doctor's advice, whether they would have even told us that this had happened.
Well, I think what's been quite interesting with the King since he first announced that he was undergoing treatment for cancer is just how transparent he has been and how open he has wanted to be. So from the very start,
from the prostate.
Yeah, he was very open about the fact that he had been. We don't know what cancer he has. We still don't know that. But he's been very open about the fact that he has cancer, that he is receiving his treatment, that treatment's ongoing. And this continues with that pattern of transparency. And I think the feeling from him and from Buckingham Palace and all those you speak to is that by being transparent, it helps raise awareness and could help other people.
Yeah, because in other words, you can have cancer and carry on with pretty much day-to-day life, even when you are the head of state. Talking of the word state, we've got a state visit to Italy coming up. That's on the beginning of April, pretty much in a week and a bit time. That's already been upset by the Pope saying, I can't see the King, you can't come to the Vatican because he needs rest and recovery. The big question now is, what are the doctors going to do about Italy? And I suppose they can't even decide that until they know how the King is in the coming days.
Yeah, his doctors will, of course, prioritise his health first and foremost. It is still hoped, very much planned, that he and the Queen will still carry out their state visit to Italy. They are hoping that there are no major changes to his programme next week before he goes to Italy. But if they need to change the programme in light of this to protect and prioritise his health, they will do. But, I think everyone you speak to, we've seen with our own eyes just how important work is to the King and how much joy he gets. Do you remember at the end of Australia and Samoa, they said...
They called it a tonic.
They called it a tonic, the perfect tonic, that he had really got an awful lot out of that tour and how much he gets out of the day-to-day work. And if you look at his programme over the last few weeks and months, it's been incredibly busy. As we've come into 2025, we were told that he was going to resume a full overseas tour programme. So, he does get an awful lot out of that work.
I think they're going to do everything they can to avoid having to cancel Italy, because that is it's a much bigger story on a different level, not just cancelling a few engagements in Birmingham, but cancelling an official state visit that's quite something, and they'll do everything they can to try and avoid that from happening. Now, I just saw a few moments ago the King leave Clarence House, which is where he was. As you say, he was actually working last night. He had dinner, as I understand it, with Queen Camilla. He's spending the weekend away from London at Highgrove. He loves Highgrove, perfect place for him to be. And then, as you say, it's all about next week adjusting his schedule, making it lighter if they have to in order to get him to Rome.
And what was interesting when he made that move from Clarence House, he departed by car this morning. There were lots of members of the public gathered there, and the window of the car was down. And
that was what did you used to say about the late Queen? Nothing happens by accident.
Nothing happens by accident. And he very much clearly wanted to be seen. And that was true last year when he was first diagnosed and had to withdraw from public-facing duties. When he was moving around, he did send the State Bentley. The State Bentley has very big windows you can clearly see in. They wanted
wound the window
him
down.
to
I
be
say
seen.
wind the window. No one does that anymore. He pressed the button and after did.
Yeah, he obviously wanted to be seen, and he throughout has wanted to maintain as much of a link with members of the public as he can, and I think that was true this morning.
Plenty of crowds there this morning. So thank you for Lizzie. That's the update of the King's health. So we return this podcast to its own health now. That's one of Charlene's kind of segues. We're going to make Charlene proud and join her for the rest of the episode where we go through everything else that happened in Royal Land this week. So enjoy this week's show.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Charlene White and we're reunited in real life with Lizzie and Chris. Welcome back from Estonia.
Did you miss us last week?
I did miss you last week.
Was it quite lonely here in the studio all by yourself?
Well, I had less back chat, so I enjoyed that.
So that was good.
It's hard to do back chat when you're talking down the line. There's a slight delay.
There's a delay.
But we can make up for it this week.
We can. People don't always realise that when we do things when you're abroad, there tends to be a little bit of a delay. So the banter probably wasn't the level at which it normally is at, but we will rectify that today, won't we?
Lots to talk about today.
Well, three of us were together today. Why were we together today?
Well, some of us were working. Others amongst us were basically hobnobbing with royalty, whilst we were doing filming, interviews, engaging in the sort of big themes. Other people were just having fun and drinking coffee.
Yes, and those other people were me.
Yay.
And some other ITV faces and those who work on other shows under the ITV Studios umbrella to celebrate ITV's 70th birthday with a special guest.
Special guest, the Queen came to the set of Trigger Point, one of ITV's programmes, and this was all about not only celebrating ITV's birthday, but by using it as a chance to sort of celebrate British television, and that's why Trigger Point was chosen.
No, I was expecting like a set, as in like a film set when you go in and, I don't know, like a big studio or something. It was basically the back of Brent Civic Centre.
Was it actually the back?
Yeah.
We weren't allowed
You were like locked in this room upstairs drinking champagne, presumably?
No, I was on coffee because I'm working today.
But outside, where the work was happening, we were filming and it was just literally at the back. So we'll show you some pictures in a minute, but when Vicky McClure, who is the sort of lead actor in Trigger Point, see just here, if you're watching this, she dives down to the ground, and there's the Queen with a pair of headphones on, watching it being recorded in a little tent nearby. This
what
is
was
just
amazing,
the back of where you are, and the building actually blew up. Now, not in real life, because you hear someone go, bang, and she dives to the ground. But in post-production, they are going to sort of put the explosion on the building where you were. So you were actually very close to danger today.
What's amazing, though, is like how much time it takes just to film a really, really short sequence. But it was fascinating, I think, not only for the Queen to watch, but I found it fascinating to watch as well.
Yeah, and it was a real celebration, as you say, of British television. And, we were talking about all the successes and the history of ITV. They sort of played a little bit of a video and she cut a cake.
She did a clapperboard cake, and she actually had a go with the clapperboard when she was on the Trigger Point set. And they were saying to her, just be careful of your fingers. Don't snap too hard and catch your fingers.
I had to ask the name of the person who does that clapperboarding thing. It's called a clapper loader. I didn't know this. I thought it might be gaffer or grip or all those other things you see on the credits. You never know what they do. But no, clapper loader is what she did. So one of the takes, if they use that take, will be one that she clapper loaded.
Yeah, they said to us all when we were there, when we were on the set, they were like, you do actually have to be quiet and stand right back because they could use this this could actually be used in Trigger Point.
You might see me or Lizzie's face like in the corner, like popping up, saying, sorry.
And then she met Dermot was there, Dermot O'Leary was there.
A host of famous faces.
Olivia Atwood-Datt.
ITV.
Vera was there,
Brenda Blessing was there, Christine Lampard was there.
Lorraine was there,
Yeah.
Susanna Reid was there.
I saw Lorraine afterwards leaving without her shoes on. She'd taken her shoes off and said, ouch, my feet are really sore. And she was just walking away in bare feet. So
I resisted that urge. I hobbled back out after 3 hours.
talking of outfits.
Yes.
Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go.
We got about 5
That was
minutes
quite
in
a good
before
segment, don't you think? We
before
went
he
from
brought
Lorraine's
up
shoes
your-
to your outfit.
Yeah, I was waiting how long.
Anyone who's watching this either on YouTube or ITV can see what you're wearing, yes?
Yes, look.
Okay.
See? It's gorgeous.
It's a lovely
Gorgeous.
colour, isn't it? What colour would we
Gorgeous.
call this?
This is like
Lime?
a lime green.
Lime. I'm right for once.
Yeah, it's a lime green.
Yeah.
But
and what
colour
colour were all the backgrounds, all the boards, all the 70th
all the
birthday
posters,
stuff?
all the screens.
Yeah.
Lime
green. So basically, Charlene couldn't be
Here
seen.
we are. We can have a look
There we
at you
go.
now. There you are.
You can
Me
barely
too.
see me.
I can't see her. Like she's literally merging into the ITV 70th signage. Look, you're talking to the Queen. Get Paul
Yeah.
Brand out of the way. There we go.
Yeah, and I didn't realise till I turned up, and everybody, every Tom, Dick, and Harry kept saying, "My goodness me, you're on brand. You are exactly the same colour."
So on brand. So it wasn't just me that mentioned it to you.
No, but you were the only one that kept going on and on and on.
And yet, and still on. And what did you talk to the Queen about?
Do you know what? Because obviously she, as we've spoken about before on this show, she has openly and very visibly supported various domestic abuse charities. She had the documentary on ITV, obviously, and Loose Women does their own domestic abuse campaign. So I was talking to her about how much that support means and how the charities that we speak to and engage with just say how important it was to have her support. And she said, yes, it is something close to her heart.
And yet again this week, we had some truly awful news about the number of women who are either killed by their partner or commit suicide because of domestic abuse. And that's exactly the issue that the Queen was highlighting in that Behind Closed Doors documentary just before Christmas.
And it was actually Carolyn McCall, the chief executive of ITV, gave a speech before the Queen said a few words and actually mentioned and highlighted that landmark documentary that the Queen made.
The Queen says she remembered the first broadcast on ITV. Yet, not for us to say the Queen's old, but she herself said, I'm a lot older than you lot.
I do remember ITV starting on, those very old televisions in those days with things that went around looking like lemon space for the world. But I do remember the excitement of suddenly having another channel and, to watch how you've gone on from there, how much you've appealed to the nation is absolutely brilliant. So I hope for the next 70 years you'll go on getting bigger and better.
And actually then it was only the second channel to the BBC, so everyone was very excited.
It was a big deal. There were loads of people watching this who just think it's unfathomable that we lived in an era where there were just two channels.
Yes, absolutely. So Vicky McClure, I spoke to her about sort of what the Queen did and also the kind of wider issues around streaming and TV drama and how much TV drama costs these days, and how British drama is actually a very important export because it gets sold abroad and it's one of our big exports. Let's hope Donald Trump doesn't put any tariffs on it. But this is what Vicky said about how the Queen did on set today.
Look, this has been a very surreal for us on set, but yeah, it was amazing. I think everyone was super excited to meet her, yeah.
We might get a take that she clapper loaded.
She did. She loaded it and she clapper boarded the scene, and then apparently she saw Lydia, who's the focus puller, and said that looks like fun, so she went and had a play on that as well. So if it's in great focus or out of focus...
We'll find out, won't we? If you were in charge of budgets at Trigger Point, would you give Queen Camilla a job?
Yep, she's got the job.
Yeah?
Yep.
Right.
Oh,
excellent.
God.
She can come again.
She can come again. She passed the audition.
I love the fact that Vicky, through that whole thing, stood as though she was in character, holding her vesting.
It was really heavy because they had a military advisor guy there, didn't they? I'd sort of overheard him talking to the Queen that he used to be in the parachute regiment, I think, because the King is Colonel-in-Chief of that. And she was just feeling the weight of it. And actually lead you into a secret, before the Queen got there, we were deciding whether or not Vicky McClure could stand there the whole time and hold it, because actually
Is it that heavy?
it's actually really heavy. Obviously, it's fine, easier when it's on your body, but to stand there and hold it in front of the Queen. And one of the things the Queen was shown that the actual suit has some air conditioning in the back of it to stop you from perspiring too much.
Perspiring and overheating.
Yes, quite.
Oh, well, when we saw her, it seemed like she had a really good time, and she's a really big supporter of the work that we do, which is really important, not just here, but internationally as well. Let's move on to her stepson, Harry, because he's been in the papers this week because of his charity, Sentebale. Talk through what's been happening there. It's been through across all the front pages this week.
Yeah, this... I mean, this was a real shock, I think, this week. So Prince Harry founded Sentebale with Prince Seeiso of Lesotho 20 years ago, back in 2006. And this is a charity that is deeply personal for Prince Harry. The charity Sentebale means forget-me-not. It was set up in memory of both of their mothers, and it's helping children in Lesotho affected by HIV and AIDS. And he has done an enormous amount of work around this charity, and it's sort of, you talk about what's Prince Harry's legacy. Really, Sentebale and Invictus are two of those big charities he has left from when he stepped back as a working member of the royal family. Those are the two things he sort of held on to. And we found out this week that he was stepping back as patron of the charity.
It's pretty extraordinary, really. I mean, just how much of this played out in the public domain. So my understanding is, so this goes kind of back 6 months or more, basically a disagreement with the new chair of the board, who's Dr. Sophie Chanduka, and basically they've all fallen out. And rather than sort of come to a mutual agreement or just close things off or find a new boss or leave or whatever else you can do in these situations, they've decided to play it out in the public domain. So Prince Harry turned left, the organisation he co-founded, so did Prince Seeiso, so did all the Board of Trustees, saying that they could no longer work with Dr. Chanduka. And then she then put out a statement basically saying Harry's playing the victim card and he's using the press to, the press that he disdains, that's her words, to get out his narrative, and thinks he was playing the victim, and just the most extraordinary kind of public spats between the co-founders and the chair.
And when you look at the language around the statement that Prince Seeiso and Prince Harry put out, it's sort of with heavy hearts, it's devastating, what's transpired is unthinkable, they are in shock. That language, I mean, I really do think that must be how they're feeling. I cannot stress enough how important this charity is to Prince Harry and Prince Seeiso.
We've spoken to Prince Harry about this several times before, about the charity itself. Let's take a listen.
I mean, here, out of everywhere in Africa, everyone is so happy to see help coming. And, what more could you ask for? My heart's in Africa, as well as obviously back home. But if I get a chance to go away, 9 times out of 10, it's Africa, and it's just a very special place. What started as an idea of me turning around and going, right, I've got a year off, I want to do something really constructive in my life. I want to do something that makes my mother proud. And someone says, right, go to Lesotho. It's like, where the hell's that?
Yeah, he has said, as we've seen there so many times, how committed he is to Sentebale. And even in 2020, he went to a fundraising dinner, and it happened just after him and Meghan announced that they were going to quit as working members of the royal family.
It's kind of his final thing he did in the UK before they went off to, you remember, they first went to Canada before they went to California.
And in that, he said, talking at the Sentebale dinner, he said that my commitment to Sentebale will never falter. So the fact that this has happened is really extraordinary.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next, because as you say, it sort of came as a bit of a bolt out the blue.
Yeah, and actually when you've got like the chairman saying, or the chairperson saying that they've only done this because they've taken, I am a woman who dared to blow the whistle about issues of poor governance, weak executive management, abuse of power, bullying, harassment, misogyny, and misogyny towards a black woman. So, accusing Prince Seeiso and Prince Harry of that. He's married to someone, of course, whose mother is black, father's white. I mean, extraordinary, I thought, absolutely.
There's another bit of Dr. Chanduka's statement where she says, there are people in this world who behave as though they are above the law and mistreat people and then play the victim card and use the very press they disdain to harm people who have the courage to challenge their conduct. Now, she doesn't name anyone in that, but I mean, I think it's heavily implied that she's talking about
the press that they
Prince
dislike.
Harry.
I mean, who are we talking about here? Yeah,
it's strong. She was not holding back.
She was not holding back. We contacted the Charity Commission this week, and they have said that they are aware of concerns about the governance of Sentebale, and they are assessing the issues to determine the appropriate regulatory steps. Okay, so we will keep you posted.
Yes, this story isn't over yet, is it at all? talk about other things that have happened in the public eye, not the minor roles, but the ones that aren't necessarily that active. But Beatrice, who we don't really hear that much about, really. She doesn't really...
Partly because who her father is, clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's clearly...
She's also
a lot
not
of people
a working
are
member
very...
of the family.
Not working member.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel sorry for her because actually, that it's not their fault that their father's been in the news as much as he has. But yes.
So she did an article in Vogue talking about preterm pregnancy. The reaction to it has been very interesting. I read an article, an opinion piece about it, which said that Beatrice shouldn't do too much of this, otherwise people start thinking about her in the same way they think about Meghan. They just talk too much about themselves. But this is an important issue for her to be.
It's an important, and I also think that
she doesn't do hardly any press, really.
She does a lot of work around dyslexia, and she has given this interview to Vogue because she is the new patron of a charity called Born, which is a premature charity. So I think it's incredibly relevant for her to do that, and I don't think she does. I don't think we do hear that much from her. So her daughter Athena was born earlier this year. She was a few weeks early. We knew that at the time, that she was due in the spring and that she was early. And her husband Edo described her as tiny but perfect. But this article from Beatrice talks about her experience, and she says that following on from this pregnancy journey, she has found herself in a position of being a passionate new mother who wants to work to find answers for women globally. So that's why she's done this.
If you remember, on Christmas Day at Sandringham, we were first guided that not only that Prince Andrew and Sarah Fergie weren't going to be there because of all the stuff that came out before about the alleged Chinese spy, but that neither were Beatrice and Eugenie. But then Beatrice did go because clearly she was told that she wasn't able to fly anywhere because her pregnancy was looking like it was going to be premature. So.
It's a very personal article, actually. She talks about, how she was feeling at the time, the fact that she felt there was little control. And then she said that after Athena was born, she was so tiny, it took more than a few weeks for the tears of relief to dry. So it's a very personal article and done with a purpose behind it, I think.
And also, it's really nice to hear when they talk from the heart about things, about very personal experiences, because that does impact, doesn't it?
That people can relate to as well.
Yeah. It's sort of, people say, what is the point in the royal family? What do they do? And what they do is that they shine a light on causes and issues. So we spoke about the Queen earlier, shining a light on domestic violence. What Beatrice is doing here is shining a light on a different issue, and they're using that profile to do that.
Yeah. And actually using your profile for stuff.
Here we are. Here's a segue.
I'm going to score this one.
Into Prince Charles, because what we do every week, of course, we delve into our archives and we have a look.
I'm still on the segue. Is it finished yet?
Yes, no, it's not. Stop, Chris. Give me time. I'll get there eventually. Every week we dive back into the archives and we have a look at some footage that perhaps we haven't seen in a little while. So we're going back to 1985, when the then Prince Charles was doing something for the Prince's Trust and highlighting the work of the Prince's Trust, much like Beatrice has been highlighting the work of the charity that she's now supporting. And through doing that highlighting work, he did a bit of breakdancing. Shall we have a look at the breakdancing from this week in 1985?
Let's have a look.
Take a look at the footage. All right, Chris, what are we looking at here?
Well, good question. Charles in a double-breasted suit for a start, because when doesn't he wear a double-breasted suit? And he's gone onto a dance floor where other people are successfully creating some moves. And suddenly the suit's undone, the legs are moving, the feet are, here we go, the arms are in the air. Look at this. This is like Prince Charles as you've never seen him before.
Do you know what, though? I mean, good on him for giving this a go, doing a bit of break.
Well, you know what?
Full of people.
Really good on him.
And the room full of cameras as well, because I think if I was in there, I wouldn't be doing anything like that.
And you're right what you said earlier about, by him doing that, throwing himself into it, having fun, people would have been talking about it at the time. We're still talking about it now. He is highlighting the very issue that he wants people to talk about. So, but also, I think, we talked last week about the photograph of him in disguise and how that showed his personality and how he was up for having a bit of fun. I think that, again, shows you the sort of a bit of personality.
It does. And we've spoken previously about the Prince's connection to so many different communities in the UK, and doing something like that and throwing caution to the wind, getting involved in breakdancing. At that point, I'm not sure many princes or kings to be would have even behaved in that way before. He's sort of getting rid of protocol and just being very honest and very personal.
A little bit like the way he put himself out there with the Apple Music playlist a couple of weeks ago, because I think you were saying actually in some countries the songs that he chose went down really, really well.
Really well, because it showed a connection, and whether or not he regularly listens to all those songs or not, it's really clever that they even do something like that, because they're reaching out way beyond, I know we'd assume the royals would listen to purely classical music, and it's making it feel like they're a bit more well-rounded.
Yeah.
And that takes time, and for that to be believable would have involved things like that, breakdancing in front of kids.
And actually not just as a young man, actually, because I just gave Marcus, our producer, some video of Prince Charles, as he still was then, I think, in Canada in 2022, actually about 6 months before he became king, where, as you can see, shuffling round the corner when he was in the very northern reaches of Canada. Do you remember? It was still snowing up there, and we were doing a whole piece about the ice roads. Do you remember? And how they were melting sooner and forming later, and it was cutting off communities. Very much a Prince Charles story of the time, and yet there he was, just still happy in his 70s to be on the dance floor with the people that he was with.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's important. That's a level of connection you can't really...
Totally.
Yeah, you can't fake, I think. Right, finally, talking about fakeness. There we go.
Well, I scored your last segue at 3 out of 10.
Well,
I give that one slightly higher.
I'd say that's about an 8.5, I would say.
Too high.
So let's talk about what then transpired was the fake beef between Meghan and Gwyneth.
Oh my word,
Was it fake beef or was it real beef that they decided to make some kind of publicity stunt out of?
No, I don't know. I think it was probably real beef.
Explain what we're talking about.
Yeah, go on then.
Okay.
Go on.
So everyone knows what Meghan's show was about. In fact, we've spoken about it on this podcast. And if you don't, it's Meghan's new show, With Love Meghan. And it's all about her cooking and being a host and making tea bags and things.
Lifestyle.
And then up pops this video of Gwyneth Paltrow in her kitchen, which was on her Instagram story or Instagram?
Yep.
The gram. And should we have a look at it? So, what did everyone think that she was doing there? What did you think when you saw that?
Well, Gwyneth Paltrow is dressed down in her pajamas. She's making a sort of
An egg.
fried breakfast. The dog's there.
The music as well
was
from one of the scenes in Meghan's show, wasn't it?
Yep.
So everyone wrote this up as Gwyneth Paltrow
throwing shade
throwing shade.
Yes. It was the song used in the adverts for Meghan's series. This will be an everlasting love.
And turns out that either then they decided let's make some publicity, as I was just saying, out of it, or they are busy mates, because guess what turned up next?
So then we had, there was a Q&A on Gwyneth Paltrow's Instagram, and this was one of the questions and her answer.
I genuinely do not understand this at all whatsoever. Do you understand this?
Oh, genius. I would love to think that Meghan's this PR genius, where, because lots of people over the week's been taking the mickey out of her show and what have you. So she's like, I'm going to get one of my favourite people who've got this incredible following online that everybody loves to pretend to take the mickey. That then blows up, and then we go, no, we're actually friends.
Yes,
and we're all
yes, we should say anyone who's listening to this podcast and didn't see that clip, the camera pans round after Gwyneth Paltrow stops talking, and there's Meghan sort of chomping away at a pancake or something. But I know, to get these two people together, surely they're agents and they're advisors, or do they just call each other up and say, hey?
I reckon in my head, circles, baby, circles. They're all in the same circle.
Yeah.
They're on like a WhatsApp group with the girls.
The Montecito WhatsApp group.
Yeah, and they're like, this is quite funny. And then, they just play it out. I reckon so.
Is this the circle you're heading towards next? Is that like...
Yeah, I'm totally going to be hanging out the Montecito crew. That's exactly where my career is heading.
Meghan's had a busy week, though. I mean, she's had a busy few weeks, hasn't she? So we've now
got a second series. I don't think we forgot to talk about that last week, didn't we?
No,
we got a second series of...
second series.
I think it was on the list, and then we didn't talk about it, possibly. But so there's more to come. More Meghan.
More Meghan. And now this week, she is using something called Shop My. So it is basically hand-picked, curated collection of things that she likes particularly to wear. And on this site, she puts links to those items so that you too can go and buy a shirt, a bag, sunglasses.
Okay, so what are the prices of these items?
Well, there's a whole range. We were just looking, weren't we? So there's sort of, from a Uniqlo
trench
coat
coat
for £99.90, and then we found a Windsor gown, didn't we?
Yeah, by Heidi
Merrick,
That's
and that
it.
was £1,070.
Right.
Windsor gown,
Yeah.
I like that.
Didn't I read somewhere there was a handbag on there for about £9 million or something? Or
Yeah,
maybe
but
I'm exaggerating.
it goes from like low to
Right.
high, which is this kind of.
But yeah, I think you
what
were
a lot
saying
of
that this
celebs
is
do.
what celebs do. They literally,
Yeah, so Frankie
you know,
Bridge has one as a shop my.
Right.
Yeah.
Because actually she gets asked so many questions about the things that she's wearing because people want to buy something similar. So rather than take a picture of it, do a Google reverse search and try and find it, it's like, well, rather doing all of that, there is a page that I can direct.
But
And
the thing is that
interestingly-
Meghan will get a cut from every sale.
Yes.
So
by
at the
Meghan,
top of
so-
her shop my, it says, please note some products may contain commissionable links.
Oh, I
I-
was say may contain nuts, but no. I've got. Why don't we set up a Shop My account and then we can put on your lime green outfits?
My very corporate lime green outfit, which
Yeah.
I feel like I can never wear again.
Yeah, I can put my chinos on.
Yeah, no one wants that.
No?
But we can put your beautiful dresses on there.
Thank you.
That would work. I always like her. I like a Lizzie dress.
Oh, thank you.
But anyway, I feel like we've run out of things to say. Well, thank you, as always, Chris and Lizzie, for being in the studio with me. I'm not sure whether you're with me next time, but fingers crossed. You can hear us talking royals every week by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, by watching on ITVX and on YouTube. So we shall see you next week.